Good morning. We'll take a brief look at 1 Thessalonians 3 this morning. Paul and Silas, Timothy, several of them had been traveling through this area of Macedonia, and they spent about a month or so in the town of Thessalonica. And during that time of teaching and talking with people there, there was a church that was formed and begun. People, new believers, came to believe in Jesus that way, and some people that had been stirring up trouble for Paul and others in other communities came again into Thessalonica and started stirring up trouble. And so in chapter 3, Paul says, "Therefore, when we could no longer endure it, we thought it would be good to leave and go to Athens." So they went and they traveled to Berea and then to Athens, and these same people that were stirring up trouble for Paul in one community, they find out where he was, and they would come and stir up more problems in other places that way. And so it came to be that they almost felt that they were under fire. People were out for them, or and in a way that was true. I mean, these Jews, like Paul had been, very staunch Jews, believers that way, were upset with his new teachings and stuff that way, and when they were doing anything and everything they could to squelch these, Paul and these others that were teaching about Jesus. So they were, he says, we were concerned about your faith. So we're writing a letter now, later on, just to touch base. And he's sending it with Timothy as the messenger that carried the letter back to the people at Thessalonica. And Paul rejoiced that they were standing fast in their faith, in their belief and trust in Jesus, in spite of these people continuing to be there, continuing to stir up unrest in these early believers. And chapter 3 is a pretty short chapter, and he ends it with, he says, it's a prayer for the church. And I think this is a prayer we need to pray for all of our churches, And now may the God and Father himself of our Lord Jesus Christ direct our ways to you, and may the Lord make you increase and abound in love toward one another and to all, just as we do you, so that he might establish your hearts blameless in holiness before our God and Father at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ with all of his saints. You think about that, to pray that he might increase our love to one another and to all, just as we do in you. That's what Paul is saying, and we continue to pray for you. We continue to be concerned for your well-being, and wouldn't it be great if all people could do that? And, I think about, the stuff that's going on in our political world right now with, the Supreme Court justice that there, has been nominated, and they're questioning, and some of the and the politicians that we have, one person brings up dirt on another, and I don't know, there's so much going on in the world that we seem to be tearing each other down, and that's what was happening with Paul and these early Christians, as they were traveling around. As I said, they had to leave Thessalonica because they actually feared for their safety because of what they were teaching. They were being persecuted for their faith that way. And it's just we're probably not so much persecuted for our faith, and so many people aren't truly persecuted for their faith, but faith is certainly an issue in today's society and in every society. People put a burden on us to well, are you living your life as a Christian? And, what kind of values does that give you? And what really, how are you affected by your faith in Jesus Christ? And how are other people affected by that same faith? And how do we continue to encourage each other that way in so many aspects of our lives, in the midst of all of the troubles and trials that we have of our own? And Paul refers sometimes to his affliction. There's something. He's got something going on in his life, and he's prayed and he's asked that God would take it from him. But he understands that his life isn't going to be perfect, and But but in all of that, no matter how concerned he was for himself, his concern was greatly always for other people and for their faith and for their trust. And I think that's just exemplary. I think that's something that we need to be thinking about too. And as a parent, as a grandparent, I think about that for my kids and my grandkids, and that I'm grateful that they know who God is, who Jesus is, and will continue to encourage them in their walk that way. And not only them, but my friends, my neighbors, the people I relate with each day. Faith is important to know and to believe in Jesus, and we have so many good examples of that in the Bible, and just to know that that these words that were written so many years ago fit so well with today's society again. And so here, that's what we kind of have. There's a little deal in my Bible here that talks about Paul and stuff, and the heading on it is painful expectations. And that's kind of true sometimes. We have pains growing and sharing, and our expectations don't always become reality. We expect something, we do something, and we expect a result, and sometimes the result is a little bit different than that. And a person I would think that in these early churches and in today's society as well, that when we send a missionary, when someone goes to an area where these people don't know Jesus, they don't know about Jesus, and they learn about Jesus, you would hope that, or you would think that they would welcome it with joy and thanksgiving. But the reality is that even our missionaries today meet with much opposition in and throughout their work and their ministry to God. And there are people in these areas that do just like the people in Thessalonica and Berea and Athens did with Paul and those others. They try to subvert what they're teaching. They try to get the people to say, oh, forget about that. That's foolishness. That's folly. Let's continue to be as we were rather than let God change us. But God can bring miracles in people's lives. We see it and hear about it every day. And I pray that God continues to work in the world, and that the news of Jesus would reach to the corners where it hasn't reached yet. So God's blessings for you this day. Tomorrow morning I should be back live about 9 o'clock like normal. But thanks for tuning in today, and may God richly bless you.